Hey everybody, this is Elizabeth Potts-Weinstein, small business attorney, and today I am answering some questions that you guys have. If you have any more questions, you can go ahead and post them in the chat. But I'm going to start answering the questions that were already asked, and we'll go from there. So the first question is going to be about privacy policies. So this question is, if I don't have my website open yet, but I have a coming page soon, can I solicit emails on the page? Most of the coming soon website templates have such a spot for email collection. Typically, this is where you're collecting names and emails for an email list, right? I'm just worried that they cannot yet see my privacy policy on the website because it's not open. Does that really matter? So here's the thing. If you have a website it's a very common thing when you're launching a new business and you have just the domain and you have some kind of website that's just a placeholder, right? If it's purely just a coming soon, it doesn't collect any data from people, names and emails. It also can't have cookies on there, which a lot of people will have Google Analytics uploaded on their site kind of automatically by their web host. But if you have no analytics, no cookies, nothing, then you don't need a privacy policy. But the second you start collecting anything from people, you're going to need a privacy policy of some kind. And how extensive that is depends on a number of factors. First, what are you collecting from them? Obviously, are you just doing names and emails? Are you just having cookies, etc.? It depends upon what you're going to be doing with that data. So for example, let's say you're collecting names and emails, you're just going to use it internally. You're going to send them, newsletters, hey, we're open, come buy stuff, this kind of thing that people would normally expect. That's one thing. And you would want to tell them what you're going to be doing with it, of course, in your privacy policy. Versus if you're collecting that information and you're going to be sharing it with some other company, you're going to be selling it to somebody else. That probably isn't the situation you're doing, but this commonly happens if people have some kind of joint launch. They have some, Zoom webinar that they're doing with another set of people, and they're sharing the email list with each other. You're sharing a list. So that requires more extensive privacy policy. If you're selling the list, then you definitely need to do that, which occasionally does happen. It also depends upon where the people are who are signing up. So let's say you have a business here in California where I'm located, and your customers are going to all be local. You're launching an ice cream store. Everyone's going to come in, they're going to buy the ice cream right there. You're only going to need to worry about California law for your privacy policy as of right now, as the date I'm recording this, because the US could always pass a different law. But if you're collecting emails from everyone in the United States, if Canada, the EU, then you have to worry about the laws of all those places. And it doesn't matter that you're located in wherever you're located. You have to worry about where those people are located. So if the EU, it's GDPR, etc. Now, most of the rules are very simple, opt-in, like they have to consent to everything you're going to do. So that's a bit of a long answer, but the short answer is you probably just want a privacy policy. There's a lot of templates online that you can get. I do custom ones for people, especially when they're doing more extensive things, especially if you're gathering, health information, things like that needs a lot more extensive permissions. But for most people, you can find an online template. You just want to make sure that it's valid for the laws of where those people are. So you collecting emails from people in Europe, you need a GDPR template, not just one that's valid here in the United States. Also, if you're collecting information from people underage, if they're under 13, it's like a whole nother thing. So just to be aware of them. So next question, I'm going to go with something that's kind of in the same topic, which is what's the most common email marketing blunder that you see? So I'm answering it from a legal perspective. You have to have your address in your emails. So think anytime you have an email that goes up to more than one person, it is a marketing broadcast type of mass email. And so all the spam rules apply. That doesn't matter if you're just putting the list through in your regular email system or if you're using a company to send out email blasts. So you have to have an address. It can be a post office box. You have to have a way for people to opt out, incredibly easy. Don't make them have to reply to the email and you're going to do their opt-out in 10 days or some ridiculous thing. That's not going to fly in a lot of places. So that's one of the big mistakes. Fundamentally, one of the best things to do is to use a big email marketing company. And there are a lot of them out there that I use ConvertKit for my email marketing. They will tell you how to handle all these things and they'll do it all for you. It's not that expensive. So there's no reason to not use one of those services. And also in some industries, there are, for example, I have special rules. So if you're in some profession, you want to make sure you're complying with that, whatever those rules are. Okay, so next question is about hiring independent contractors, about tax stuff about that. So if you hire an independent contractor, oh yeah, MailChimp is okay for email marketing. That's another really good one. And their first level is free. So yes. So independent contractors, if you hire an independent contractor to do something for your business, such as marketing services, do you have to collect a W-9 each time? If you're in California, what if it's less than $600 a year? What if they're in another country? So that's a very good question, especially the other country stuff, because a lot of these laws have actually changed recently. So in the United States, if you hire an independent contractor to do work for you and you pay them more than $600 in any particular year, you have to collect a W-9 from them, which is getting their either their Social Security number or their EIN, and you have to issue them a 1099 after the end of the year. Now, sometimes you may have someone where you don't know if they're going to do more than $600 for you, and they might, right? You hire them just to do some graphic design work, making thumbnails for your YouTube channel or something like that, and each one is a relatively small amount of money, but you hired them in January, it might build up to be $600. It can be a good idea, if it might build up to that, to do the W-9 at the beginning, because it can be hard to track them down later. They do certain projects for you and then, their email bounces back and you can't figure out where they are. So it can be helpful to at the beginning. Honestly, a lot of people don't. I get W-9 requests every year, like in January. So for the previous year. So, it's a common thing to not remember to do that. So then you need to send the 1099 after the first of the year for what they did over the last year. If someone's located outside of the United States, and I'm going to assume for the sake of the argument, they're not a U.S. They're not a U.S. citizen, they're outside the United States. There's actually new rules that I am not all super briefed in because I'm not really I don't do taxes for people, but there are new rules for having to withhold the taxes for those people and send stuff to the IRS. I don't know all those new rules by heart. I do know more about them just because YouTube has had to go to all their creators all over the world and get their information, because they're going to have to withhold their AdSense revenue from YouTube creators. So this is a big issue that has changed very, very recently as of recording this in April 2021. And so this is something to be aware of, that those rules exist. I would recommend that if that is coming up for you, you would want to talk to an accountant or bookkeeper who knows about this stuff, because I'm sure that they're getting ramped up on those things, because there are exceptions to it. And you don't have to do it for everybody, and you don't have to withhold for everybody. I actually don't know when the IRS rule takes effect. Hi. So if someone's in a country where we have a tax treaty with them, we may not have to withhold stuff for them in that country. So the big thing is you have to have the location for everybody, and with a lot of logistics involved. It's something I talk to a tax person about, or a bookkeeper who does business taxes. Okay, so next question. What's the best way to start bookkeeping if you don't have an accountant and you don't want to spend a ton of money? You want to spend hundreds of dollars. So it depends on the kind of business you have. If you have a service-based business, which is like mine as a lawyer, I do projects for people and they pay me fixed amounts of money, in the sense that it's not a bunch of tiny little sales. It's relatively few, but large. A lot of assets. You don't have inventory. You don't have a lot of transactions over the course of a month. In the beginning, you can just use a spreadsheet. You can use a Google Sheets spreadsheet to track everything. You want to track your income. You want to track the expenses. You want to put things in categories. Think about it from the perspective of two things. One is you want the information to go on your tax return. And you can even look at, if you're a sole proprietorship, you can look at your Schedule C and see what are the categories and make it match up so it's easy to do your taxes. The other is you want to know what's going on in your business, enough of the cash flow of everything that's going on in your business so you know you don't run out of money, so you can pay your vendors, etc. The other issue is if you have a business that sells products, typically, I have some clients who have businesses that sell very high-end products, so it's very much like a service business. But if you sell products, you're usually selling relatively lower-end things, and you have inventory. This is more complicated. So you're definitely going to want some kind of more formal system just because it will be logistically difficult for you to deal with the management of inventory. That's when I would either hire a bookkeeper or I would use some kind of software. There are softwares that are free. So, and there are ones that are relatively low cost. Now, if you have a service-based business, one of them that I actually used a long time ago, FreshBooks. The lowest one is $4.50 a month, so not too bad. There's another one that I haven't personally used called Wave. It's waveapps.com, and it's $0 for their bookkeeping stuff. They make money on trying to get you to use their merchant accounts and other features. So that's something that I would look into. I haven't used them personally, but there's a lot of good reviews out there. Okay, so let me look back at the people who are in the chat. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys for being here live. Having a VA in the Philippines, I'm assuming that you're asking a follow-up question about the tax stuff. Yeah, I believe we have a tax treaty with the Philippines. So it may have reduced it to 0, that you don't have to do any withholding, or it may be, 4% or some number. I'm sure that answer exists, and a tax person should be able to help you with that. How do you get your name copyrighted? So talking about copyrights and trademarks a little bit. So I'm assuming you mean the name of your business. The name of your business is usually going to be protected under trademark law and not copyright law. Trademark law is protecting the name of a business or a product or service or tagline or something like that is used in conjunction with the sale of a product or service. That's trademarks. Copyrights is protecting an artistic work. It doesn't even have to be businessy at all. It's any artistic work that's created. As soon as it's memorialized in a tangible format. So as soon as this video is saved electronically, I have copyrights over it, even if I don't file the trademark. Or file the copyright, now I'm mixing up. Even if I don't file the copyright over it. Some business things are protected under copyright law, like a logo. That can be both a trademark and a copyright. And then a lot of things you create in business is also protected under copyright law. The photos that you may take, the videos that you create, the things that you write. So for the name of your business, it's probably under trademark law. You have a little bit of automatic protections, but they're very local and they're limited. So that's when you apply for a trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Insurance. Yeah. So, how much insurance should you get? 2 million versus 1 million, liability, all that kind of stuff. Some of this really depends upon your personal financial situation. So part of it is how much assets do you have personally, and how much assets does your business have? I mean, it depends if this is a sole proprietorship business. If you're sole proprietorship business, you're personally on the line for everything. So you should be shielded from a lot of it. But part of it does depend upon what the underlying value is of the assets. The other thing to think about is the higher the insurance value is, the better lawyer they're going to hire to defend you. If the insurance company has $200,000 on the line, they're going to hire one kind of lawyer. If they have $2 million in line, they're going to hire a much more fancy lawyer because they're willing to spend that kind of money. They're also willing to settle for higher amounts of money to get rid of somebody. So part of what you're paying for isn't just the insurance. You're paying for the lawyer that they will, in theory, hire you if that unlikely event happens. It also depends upon the kind of business you have. So, I have some clients where they're consultants, they work from home, Their biggest liabilities of being sued are because they don't do a good job for their client, or someone owes them money, that kind of thing. That's different than if you do live events, for example. Someone could walk in and slip and fall. You have a physical location where people could slip and fall. I mean, there's a lot more potential liability. Also, if you have employees who could do wacky things. So that's a higher liability situation. Okay. So to get copyrights, you go to, in the United States, you go to copyright.gov. That's the United States Copyright Office. Most of my clients just file copyrights themselves. I consult on it a little bit, but I usually don't do that for people because they can usually figure it out. And also you tend to want to get a lot of things copyrighted. So you go to copyright.gov and they'll explain how to do it. You can file it online. And that's a good way to get started with copyrights. The only thing that's really done on a city local level are your business licenses and your zoning things like permits, because you're selling food or alcohol, or a home occupation, which is a home business permit, which occasionally you need. Should you have copyrights over your consent? Do you need an actual registered copyright? So photos that you put online, or anything you put online, you have automatic copyrights over them. But to file a lawsuit, you have to register the copyright. You can register it later. You can register it the day before you file the lawsuit. Well, it takes a little time for them to process, so a few weeks or something before they file the lawsuit. However, if you register the copyright within 3 months of when you create the thing, when you take the photo or whatever, you get more rights because you have statutory damages that are available. One of the things that can be hard is, let's say you take a photo, you put it on your website or something, and then someone steals that photo and uses it. They're damaged you and they've harmed you, but how much? What is that amount of money? Maybe it's the amount of money that they should have paid you for a licensing fee, but what if you don't license anybody, that kind of stuff? It's very difficult to figure out what the damages should be. So if you register the copyright within a couple months of when you created it, then there's statutory damages that are just amounts of money. And there are different hundreds or thousands of dollars just for someone using it. You don't have to prove up the damages part. So that can be helpful. Generally speaking, my clients typically don't copyright every gosh darn thing they create because it's just too many filings that you have to do. But if you're an artist, obviously that's more important. If you're creating final works, you can do certain things in batches. So that's something to look into if there's a way for you to take all your work and kind of create a system. I have some clients where they have an assistant and part of their assistant's job is just to file all those copyrights. Because once you get the system of it, it's not that technically difficult to do. Can you combine your terms of service and privacy policy on one website page? A lot of people do that. The issue is that you want to make sure that it's very easy, speaking, is you can put it all on one page, and then for those of you who know about HTML, you can have internal HTML links to each of those sections. So then when someone clicks on privacy policy wherever in your website, in the footer of the website or under something where they sign up for your email list, they go directly to the privacy policy section. Same thing with your terms, that they go directly to the terms section. Here's a tip about privacy policies. Privacy policies have to be linked from every page of your website. So put them in the footer. Then they're linked from every page of your website and you're probably done. Terms of service, if those are your terms and conditions for your products or services, you want to make sure they're linked right from where people are buying. So it's not just randomly in the footer where they're never going to see it. It's right by the put in the cart button, or wherever it is that they're accessing your shopping cart. Same thing for the privacy policy. Really, you want to have a link to it where they sign up. So like if you have your big website and over here is where the email box is for them to sign up for your emails, you don't want the only place the privacy policy is down at the bottom. You want the name, email, by signing up for this, you consent to the privacy policy. You may need more extensive language if you're going to have to comply with GDPR, but for most places, that'll be enough. Yeah, the cookies pop-up thing. Oh, this is something that, so technically, we're all supposed to have the cookies pop-up thing if we have cookies on our page. It's a GDPR compliance issue. But does anybody actually read that or comply with it? This is a kind of a controversial thing because while on one hand, GDPR says anytime you get information from people, they have to affirmatively comply. So even if you're gathering just cookies, they have to affirmatively comply. However, from a user experience, they have to comply. It is annoying all of us. None of us are reading to it. It's not actual consent. If you don't have people from the EU coming to your website and you're not collecting any information from them, you may not have to deal with the cookie situation. Depends on what you're doing with cookies and if you have people coming from other places. And also, these laws are changing all the time. So someone may add it from a different place, from a different state or country. But so there's some websites that don't have it because they don't have people from the EU. Some don't have it because they are just super annoyed by that. And they're not complying with it as a matter of principle. We'll see how that flushes out over time. My personal guess is that over time, what will happen is the EU is going to realize this whole cookie policy pop-up thing doesn't work in reality because it doesn't, and then that will get fixed. But probably going to have lawsuits about it, and it takes a while for that to happen. Let me look over and see if there are any other things that I missed. One other thing I wanted to answer that was a question that has been asked a number of times is changing the name of your business after you start. Because there's a lot of people who will create an LLC or there'll be a sole proprietorship with a DBA or something like that. And then they realize they need to change the name. It could be because you realize you're never going to get the trademark. You have some trademark issue. It could be because you just change your marketing, whatever. And you realize that this name of this LLC doesn't work. Do you need to create a new LLC? What happens? Well, the answer is you don't have to have a new LLC. All you have to do, you have two options. One option is to change the name of the LLC by going to wherever you register it with the Secretary of State for the state, for example, and you file an amendment to the documents you filed originally. So the certificate of formation or whatever was called in your state, you are amending it. You usually have a form for that for you to be able to do online. Option is to keep the name of the LLC and create a DBA for this new idea. Sometimes that's better if you've had the LLC for a while and the name of the LLC is on your bank accounts, it's on all kinds of contracts and all other various accounts, and changing all those other things is overwhelming. If you do a DBA, you don't have to do that. Now, DBAs do take a bit of work. Here in California, you have to file something with your county register, and then you have to go get it published multiple times, and it takes weeks or a couple months to do. But it is a way for you to change just one thing as opposed to everything. So you have an option, a couple different ways. What else? So one of the other things that comes up a lot is, what if you create an LLC and you realize that you don't want this LLC after all? So this could be because you realize you actually want to just stay a sole proprietor. You realize you want to move to another state. You realize that you don't even want to have this particular business. There's a lot of reasons, a lot of things that can come up. So what do you do with that LLC? So there's a couple of things. One of it just depends upon, did you actually start the business at all? If you haven't started the business and it's been a very short time, you might be able to just cancel or dissolve, depends on the state, that LLC and in a very short and straightforward form and not have to pay any of the other stuff. But if it's been existing for more than just a couple weeks, if you actually transacted business with it, you have to go through a more formal filing process. One of the things that can happen that can be very frustrating is if here in California, if you create an LLC, the second you create it, there is this potential liability with the state of California for the $800 franchise fee tax. Even if you shut it down within 2 weeks, then you don't have to be liable for that as long as you didn't actually launch the business. So if you make a mistake and it's still that very short time frame, you can go ahead and undo that. If you've had it for months, then you may still have to pay that $800 a year franchise fee, which totally sucks. And I hate that fact that that's a rule. That's not necessarily true in other states. A lot of other states don't have any taxes on businesses' income, or they will don't have that 2-week time period. But in many places, you will have to file some kind of tax return to be allowed to dissolve your LLC. So it's something to be aware of, that shutting down an LLC can be slightly complicated, even if you haven't really started the business. Okay, does a DBA need to be related to the LLC? Can like a baking company have a farming business as a DBA? You can have an LLC that's like a holding company that has a bunch of DBAs under it that you can almost think of as divisions of your business, or just completely separate projects. So I have a number of clients who are one-person businesses who have a lot of different projects. And they have one LLC that's their holding company. That could be like, Weinstein Media Enterprises LLC, or some, generic LLC. And then they have various DBAs under it. You totally can do that. You could have 5 different DBAs. The issue is that everything inside that LLC is all liable to each other. So if this DBA goes bankrupt and has a bunch of debt and gets sued, the other DBA is liable for this one, because they're all on the same LLC. For a lot of my clients, that's not going to really come up, because the business is really just them. They just have different projects under it. But if you're going to have something where one of the business is making products that people could get sick by eating, or there's more complexity to it, sometimes it makes sense to have it be separate. Sometimes it makes sense to be separate also for tax reasons, and that's totally beyond the scope of this. But if you have like something like a bakery and a farm, that's an example of 2 businesses that have a lot of tax complexity. There are benefits for farms and also for in-person brick and mortar type businesses. They're wildly different from a tax perspective, and you may want them to be 2 separate tax entities. But that's something you'd have to like talk to an accountant, a tax preparer about, because they could go into all those kinds of details. Let me see if there were, one kind of side note question that came up recently on one of the videos is, if you have that LLC and you have one or multiple DBAs, how do you sign contracts? How do people write checks to you? What name do they use? So first thing is, the legal name of the business is the LLC, but you can also use any of the DBAs legally too. What I recommend for a contract is you use both names. So you have the such and such LLC doing business as whatever the DBA is. And the reason you do that is so people know they're doing business with an LLC, and it's not a DBA of you personally. Technically, they're supposed to be on constructive notice because they're supposed to be able to like look it up in the DBA database. But does anyone do that? Maybe if they have to sue somebody, they do that, but not when they're going to sign a contract. So it's a good idea just to have that on there, because there's no reason not to. For checks, if someone's writing a check to you, while they legally can write the check to the DBA, that name has to be on your bank account. So what you do when you set up your bank account is you have the LLC's name on the bank account, and then you also tell the bank about the DBAs that they exist. So that way, in case someone ever writes a check to one of them, they will deposit it. It especially is an issue for DBAs that have a very different name than the LLC, because the bank will be like, what the heck is this? I'm not depositing it. So I think I got to everything that's in the chat. You can post it right now. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for being here live. And if you're watching this later, I will do these live Q&As periodically. So you can leave any other questions that you want answered in the next one in the comments below, and then I'll answer it next time. I'm not quite sure how often I'll be doing them, because I feel like I can't predict anything here as we're in 2021. But so I will be doing them periodically. So if you have any other questions, you can let me know. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.